Hello and welcome to Gibson's Bookstore Events Remote. I'm Elizabeth. This is Mark Hoffmann here joining us today. Mark is an author and an illustrator. He is joining us for a story time and a doodle session today. We do have to edit the final recording a little bit so that we do not display the entire picture book to the people who are watching the video later, because we can't post a video of an entire picture book to the internet. That, otherwise the publishers would be a little bit cross with us, but you guys get the whole thing live today. So please join me today in welcoming Mark Hoffmann with his two new books, Dirt Cheap, which he wrote and illustrated, and Explosion at the Poem Factory with his beautiful art. Hi guys.
Hello. So, I have these two books here, and I want to go through these, and then I'm going to do a little drawing demo and answer some questions for everybody. I want to start out, before I jump into the books, I want to say to everybody, thank you for tuning in, but also, this is a strange time that we're in, and if you can, show your love for books by going out and visiting your local indie store online. Gibson's is up in Concord, New Hampshire, and they're a lovely store. I've worked with them before and bought many books there. And we really appreciate everything they do. I know that most stores at this point, including Gibson's, I assume, are doing curbside pickup, shipping, really trying to keep books in people's hands. So if you can show your support, I would really ask that you do that. So today I want to read through at least Dirt Cheap, and we'll talk a little bit about Explosion at the Poem Factory because it's a little bit longer, but I want to go through Dirt Cheap. This is the first time that I've read this book in public, actually, so this will be kind of exciting for me. So this is a love of mine for quite some time. I had been working on this book for almost 2.5 years, I think, and it's finally come out, and so I'm really, really happy to have it. So I'm going to start by opening it up. And this spread is actually this, what we call the end paper, which is stuck on the inside of the cover, is really, really important here. I want, I don't know if people will see this, but there's some dirt and the grass is really long. And so the yards are kind of not kept up well. Okay, so Dirt Cheap. This is Birdie. Birdie, Birdie, say hi. Hi. What are you looking at, Birdie? The XR 1000 Super Extreme Soccer Ball. It's so beautiful. I want it. I need it. Well, soccer balls cost money. How much you got? None. If only money did actually grow on trees, or anywhere for that matter. Maybe you could sell some of your stuff. Big spread here, again, dirt on the ground. No one knows a good deal when they see it nowadays. There must be something I can sell, something I have and people need. So she's having a yard sale. That's a clue right there, the word yard sale. And I hope everybody out there has had a chance to do a yard sale. Yard sales are kind of fun. I used to do them a lot when I was little. Dirt for sale, high quality, fresh morning, dirt for sale. It says $25 for a dirt bag. That's a hefty price for a bag of dirt. Is that how much you think it's worth? How should I know what it's worth? I'm just trying to buy a soccer ball. You can't expect to make all the money at once. Maybe you should rethink the price. So that's Dirt Cheap.
So I guess I'll ask you a question. Did you do something like this as a kid that made you think of this story? Did you try and set up a business? Or I'll also ask our the people who are watching our story time, what do you think you would sell if you had a business?
So for me, I didn't really play in the dirt all that much. I've been one of those people that doesn't. I'm okay with nature, but I'm not a person that likes to get too dirty. What was really important about this book to me was not about the dirt. It was actually about the money side of things and knowing how much a nickel and a penny and all those things are worth. I work with what's called an editor at the publishing company who suggested that I write a book about money. And I was looking up terms and phrases that related to money, and the phrase dirt cheap popped up. And I instantly, I mean, in a matter of a few seconds, once I saw that, thought it'd be really funny of someone trying to sell dirt. And so it sort of sprung from that. I like to have little educational value in all the books that I write. So my first book, Fruit Bowl, is really about what makes a fruit versus a vegetable. And this one's really about sort of how money is important and the value of things. And so if you look, again, if I go back to the inside, she's trying to sell it at $25 a bag at the beginning, right here, and no one wants to buy it. But once she jumps to 25 cents a bag, all of a sudden people say, well, that's a good value for a bag of dirt. And so she loads up all these pillowcases that she has from her house with dirt, and is able to sell a ton of it, and ends up selling too much, obviously.
Was there a toy in your childhood that you had to save up your money to get?
Yeah, lots of them. Lots of them. I probably, too many to name. I remember there was a toy that I really wanted. It was a GoBot, which is like a transformer, but sort of smaller, that I really wanted. And I remember going to the store and spending my own money on it and being very excited. I think I still have it in the house here, up in a craft room that we have. It's sitting on a shelf. It's a little blue sort of bulldozer sort of looking guy that I really wanted.
We have a comment here from William who says that they sold old items stored in their barn. So they had a barn sale.
Oh.
A yard sale. They had a barn sale.
Yeah, that's the other trick in this one. That's that little clue at the beginning where she's trying to have a yard sale, and there's a sign there that says yard sale, and that's sort of what happens in the book later on. She actually sells her yard. Yeah, I had what we called garage sales. I used to live in Minnesota, and I don't know if it was just a regional thing, but everybody called them garage sales. Even if they were out on your lawn, you called them garage sales.
Well, that's presumably you sold stuff from your garage.
Yeah. Well, I think we had tables set up in the garage that we'd sell a lot of things from. So I don't know where it came. I was young enough that I probably had no idea of how it all worked. I just remember sitting out there and working the cash register, the little bin of money that we used.
So do we want to hop into Explosion at the Poem Factory, or do we want to doodle a little bit first?
Why don't we, you know what, I'll doodle first. I'll set this off to the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw Birdie to start. And what I will say is I have some activity sheets on my website. If you go to studiohoffmann.com, it's studiohoffmann.com. There is a tab there that is called Printables. I just uploaded a bunch of them last night. But there's a How to Draw Birdie. There's a coloring sheet. Coloring sheet is actually a rejected cover from this that I really like. It's her standing on top of a bunch of pillowcases, because that's what she used to fill the dirt into. And there's some coins or paper coins that you can use to play with to sort of figure out how to make 25 cents, or to make different variables with the coinage that you can color and whatnot. And there's ones for other books as well there. But so Birdie is sort of the easiest way to describe this. I'll draw on one side of this. Birdie's shape essentially is a triangle with a big oval on top and two big ovals. That's the basis for her shape. But it's more nuanced than that. And so the head of Birdie is sort of like a light bulb, but a really wide light bulb. And then when I come down, I make the body, and the body is actually more like a big A. And so if I put that, the pocket that's on the front of it, right on the front, it sort of looks like an A with a big light bulb at the top, or a big thought bubble at the top. At that point, I draw, she has little yellow rain boots because she's getting muddy. So those come in and those go underneath. And I connect them because she's got some black tights sticking out of her little overall shorts. Some suspenders, sleeves, and then we'll draw our hands in. In fact, we'll give her a shovel here. Okay, let's draw the rest of that arm. This arm we can come in here, we can put up on there. Now for her head, what I did is I pick a point in the center and I draw a line that sort of arcs down from that center point to both edges. Where it comes down, I draw two big ears. She's got two gigantic ears, a little triangle nose, eye, an eye, and then a little tiny mouth. And now this is the fun part, especially if you have a big, let's see, I think I have probably a colored pencil I can use here. See if I can get one that's bright enough. I don't know if yellow is going to read, but I can do it at least with a red colored pencil. And now it's a matter of just some big, huge glasses that go on top. And that essentially is Birdie. And so I had to draw this lots and lots of times throughout this book. And I got real used to the sort of the shapes and the colors and everything that went along with it. And throughout the book, you'll notice she slowly gets more dirt and things on her because she's been digging up so much dirt. There's even little bits of dirt on her cheeks. There's dirt in her hair, dirt on her arms. She just ends up getting more and more dirty as we go along. I'll draw another little thing here real quick for you as well. In fact, are there any suggestions of something that somebody wants me to draw? I've done this before. If there's something that would be a fun little image, an animal maybe?
I like cats, but does anybody in our attendees, if anybody in our audience has any ideas for what Mark could draw, go ahead and put that in the chat box right now. What, do you have any pets at home? Oh, Cordelia requests a dog. Sophia would like a unicorn. Kelly would also like a dog digging in the dirt.
Oh.
A sad turtle. And Kai wants a shark. Julia wants bugs. These are so many great requests, guys.
Yeah. In fact, on the back of the book, well, that's upside down. There we go. There is a dog digging in the dirt. And at one point in this, I forget what page it's on, that dog shows up sort of looking over a fence in the yard. Must be really on. There we go. Right here is that dog looking over the fence. It's her neighbor's dog. And then on the back of the cover, the dog's doing the same thing. So she's essentially digging dirt, and so is that dog at the same time. Why don't we draw, I like the idea of a sad turtle. So I'm gonna draw a sad turtle. So again, I like to work with shapes. And so the easiest thing for me to think of in this case is I wanna start with a nice big turtle shell. I'm gonna draw the bottom of it, and I'm gonna draw some little legs that come out. So this is relatively simple. We could add in more details as this goes along. But what I might do is actually add a little bit of an underbelly to it. And this might be fun for you guys to do at home too. The way I've done this with turtles is I draw the shape, and eventually I get in here and I make all sorts of fun patterns and colors and things on the back of the turtle to play with. But now, how do I make a sad turtle? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw the head coming out. Now I draw eyes sort of the same way on all of these. But now I got to make them sad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of putting his mouth lower, I'm going to put it up higher. And it'll look a little bit cuter because I put that mouth almost the same height as his eyes in this case. And so I can come in here and I can start to put whatever I want into details into it. But it's really just a big arc, a little circle shape for the head. and then some sort of tubes for the legs themselves. So it doesn't take a lot to get me there. If I decide to play around with it a little bit more, like a, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to do a unicorn. How do I do a unicorn? Whew. Okay. Let's do a unicorn. I'm going to do just the head in this case. So again, I'm thinking about shape. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking at this, and I know a unicorn has a relatively big neck. Well, I don't really know any unicorns, but I imagine unicorns have relatively big necks. And a jaw that comes in here, and some nose, something of the sort, an eye. Now, my unicorn, I feel like it should have something funny about its horn, and I'm trying to figure out what that should be. What would I do that's funny with the horn?
What if it was all curly?
Curly?
Or
ooh, wait.
it says, what if the unicorn's horn was an ice cream cone?
An ice cream cone. Oh, that's good. That's good. So what I'll do is I'll put some ice cream on here with some drips, and then a little cone. I like that idea of the ice cream cone. There we go. There's my unicorn, and we'll give him a nice mane that comes out, ears, and give him a little smile, some sort. And maybe horses and unicorns, of course, have to have really nice eyelashes. And let's see. I don't know. They must have. It's been a while I've seen a horse, but I'll give him a little tongue sticking out because that ice cream cone, some sprinkles on it.
What if it had a cherry on his nose?
All right, we'll draw a cherry on his nose. We got to put a little sheen on it. And there's a little cherry bounced on the nose. And I'm trying to think of other ice cream things that we could do on this. Hot fudge ripples that run down the hair here. It's funny, once you put an ice cream cone on the head, it gets really easy to start thinking of all these fun ideas to play with. I'm trying to think of other like things I like on ice cream. I just did one of the books I did earlier called Poop had an ice cream theme to it. So I just drew a bunch of ice cream cones and things of the sort for that. But there's my lovely unicorn. Let me see. I probably have one more minute to do, and I'll do a dog here. And we want a dog digging in the dirt. So let's add some dirt first. I'm going to draw this really irregular edge, some grass, things that stick up. And this can be colored in later, but there we go. And then let's see, I just saw my dog digging in the dirt for the first time the other day. Let's see, let's do, gonna be really getting down in there. Floppy ears. He's really having a good time. And again, same basic eyes, but there you go. There's hind leg and then tail. And here's what we'll do. We'll put a little squirrel up on top of him because that's probably what he was trying to get at, or a chipmunk or something of the sort. We'll do a squirrel just for fun. So every time I draw characters, it's always sort of about the shape. And once you learn and you start to look at shapes, you start to realize, oh, everything's made of shapes, and it's relatively easy to figure out what shape an object is, and it makes it really easy to draw. But I've been doing that for a long, long time, so it's maybe a little bit easier on me than other folks, but it's still practice. That's the important thing. So I got a lovely little dog digging in the dirt with a squirrel on top, who should be smiling because he's avoiding the dog. Okay.
So we have a question here. Lauren wants to know, can the kids send you pictures of their drawings?
I would love it. And
They do that.
how do they do it? They could send them to me through my website email. So if you go on my website again, studiohoffman.com, there's a link to send stuff to me, and you can send it right through through there, or it's at mh@studiohoffman.com. It's the easiest way to do it.
I'm gonna put that link right in our chat box here.
As well, if you want to, if your parents, if there's kids out there, or if you as an adult want to send me something, on Instagram, I'm Studio Hoffman on Instagram as well. Again, 2 F's, 2 N's in Hoffman, and you can tag me on it. And I would love to see what everybody draws, especially if people want to draw a silly unicorn. I would love to see that, or a picture of Birdie. I would love to see that as well. It's one of those things where I don't often get to see a reaction to people reading the books. And so anytime I see people interacting with my images, or especially little kids having fun reading or drawing from things that I've done, that's what really warms my heart. That's what I enjoy the most. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, is the books are fun for me to work on because it's my job, but it's really, the fun of it is watching and seeing how people, how their stories develop in their head from there, and how they learn to write or read or draw or whatever it may be that comes out of that story.
So tell us a little bit about Explosion at the Poem Factory now.
So Explosion at the Poem Factory. How are we on time? Just so I don't have a...
It is 11:30 right now.
Okay, perfect. So Explosion at the Poem Factory is a book by a guy named Kyle Lukoff, who, this is, I believe, his, I think his second picture book. And I got this and I thought it was such a funny story right off the bat. It's a little long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But the cover to it is this giant factory this guy's walking into. And so I'll flip through this. It starts off with a guy named Kilmer Watts. And for anybody that's into poetry, Kilmer and Watts are 2 last names of very famous poets. And so let's jump into this. So I'll read a few pages here and it'll give you a sense of how this whole thing starts. So, when automatic pianos came to Ludsden, Kilmer Watts had to find a new job. He had spent years teaching people the intricacies of fingering, the ins and outs of sonatas, and the importance of heart and soul. But with these newfangled machines, you could push a button and the piano would do the playing for you, 5 times the sound without a second wasted on practice. So in the background, these easy piano trucks are coming in. So he's packing up everything. Kilmer didn't know what else he was good at, but he had always wondered what went on inside the poem factory. Weren't poems made by hand? This is the poem factory. This used to say poem factory on it, but they wanted to say amalgamated verse and strophe. That's horse and buggy talk, boomed the foreman. Back in my day, we had to wait weeks, months even, for creaky old bards to deliver the goods. Our modern world needs assembly line poetics, don't you think? New poems for a new day. Why spend hours wrestling with rhymes when our proselytizer can find the perfect synonym with the flip of a switch? Kilmer looked around at the buzzing, clanking machines. Maybe the foreman was right, and he needed a job. Soon Kilmer learned how to operate the meter and emptied the cliche bins. The Voltatron stopped making him nervous, and the Amphibracher wasn't as complicated as it looked. And then the back half of this, not half, it's close to it though, it's almost the back third, is all essentially descriptions of what different poems are and what different words that show up in poems are. So there's things like haikus, what a heroic couplet is, what an ode is, what a sestina is. So there's lots of stuff back here. I won't read through all that, but if anybody really loves poetry, there is a lot here to learn. And so it's a very sort of simple story, but a lot of words in it that are sort of stuff that I had to learn in order to get through it. I didn't know what an Unterbracher was. I didn't know what these things were. So when I got this manuscript, I had to really study this back glossary of what everything was before I could even draw some of it. So that is Explosion at the Poem Factory.
Do you have a favorite poem, Mark?
I'm trying to think. There are a few poems that I like. I normally like funny poems. I was, you know, there's Shel Silverstein that a lot of people know. He writes funny poems for kids, and there was a guy named Jack Pruletsky, I believe was his name, who also did something very similar. Shel Silverstein did the was it New Kid on the Block? Is that Jack Pruletsky? I'm trying to remember. It's big collections of poems, and I used to read those religiously when I was young. I used to love reading those poems, and there were a couple of them that sort of I love. There was one about picking your nose, I think. There was one. There were, some of them are a little crude, and maybe that's where I got some of my humor from. But both those books are really good. I think I have some of them around for my son to read through, and we should probably crack that book open again now that I mention it.
So, did you do anything different when you were choosing how to illustrate this book?
In this case, they wanted something that had a little bit of an old feel to it. So I chose a very different color palette. You'll notice on Dirt Cheap, it's all sort of bright greens and reds and things that are meant to be sort of punchier in color. But when I got into this, they said they wanted it to be have an old feel, and the time frame of player pianos and things of that sort made it seem like this book should have an old world sort of charm to it. My big fear was I didn't want to draw machines that were really complicated. So for me, gears and wires and pulleys and those kind of things were probably the easiest thing for me to think of. The thing that was really fun, this character came from another book that I had done. Originally, it was a character, it was the same basic shape, but it was a monkey instead for that book. And they didn't like the monkey, but I said, I really like the shape of that and like the idea of these sort of bright pants. And so in order to look at this book, it's all browns and grays and things of that sort, but there is bright pink that shows up throughout it, because I want you to really pay attention to Kilmer. So he's got a pink hat, he's got pink pants, he's got a light shirt. This is, as someone pointed out, this is basically me. I don't know if I can get the glare off of that. That's basically me before I grew facial hair. That's hidden in the book. And so my goal in this one was to try to capture that sort of old color and the old style that goes along with the book. And so even the toys are sort of old toys. I feel like there's a couple other things that are sort of uses chalkboards instead of dry erase boards. The only thing that shows up in it that's really modern actually is a old cell phone in here when it talks about Luddites, which are people who are sort of against technology. That's the only time that some like modern day thing shows up in it.
Hey, so those are two great stories, and now's the time where we ask any of the audience members if they have any questions they've ever wanted to ask a picture book author or an illustrator. And maybe Mark looks like he's gonna doodle for us a little bit more now.
Getting this out in case.
Did have Stefan did want to know if you could draw a funny horse.
A funny horse. All right. I'm writing this down so I don't forget. A funny horse. Well, that's like a unicorn. Let's see. Oh, you know what I'll draw? I'll draw this instead. It's gonna be legs. Here's my funny horse. They don't have split hooves. They have dark hooves. It's gonna have clown shoes.
Sophia wants to know if you could create a book about a unicorn who turned into an ice cream cone and started breakdancing.
That's a funny idea. I'd have to think on that one. I don't know what the story is. One of the funny things about being a picture book author is lots of people come out of the woodworks and tell you that they have ideas for stories. It's amazing how many people have an idea for a kid story, and they just need to essentially write it down and start working on it. I didn't know that I was going to be doing kids books until probably about 5 years ago. I was doing other types of illustration and things of that sort for my job, and because I ended up getting one picture book through my agent at the time, all of a sudden it sort of sprung forth from there. But it's amazing how many people have great ideas for picture books, and it's a matter of just getting the time and starting to write and sending stuff out. There's some great, for anybody that wants to write picture books, there are some great resources out there. There's a thing called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators that really helps people sort of practice, and there's conferences and workshops and things of that sort. But I would say for little kids, just writing a story and putting it on a bunch of pages and stapling it together and really sort of beginning, middle, and end is such a simple concept that everybody can write one. It's a long process when you actually get one published. Again, Dirt Cheap was about 2.5 years. Explosion was probably about a year and 8 months to 2 years since I made this book. I finished it a long time ago. And so it's not an easy process once you get to the publishing stage, but it sure is easy to start writing. What other questions we got?
I would like to know, what is your favorite thing to draw and make art with? I see you're using a marker, but do you use pencils or?
Yeah, I'm using marker just because it shows up on screen better, but for the most part I use colored pencils. I use acrylic paints. I also, every once in a while, use a thing called pan pastels, which is, it's sort of like pastel, but it's a little bit more of just little cakes that you can use to sort of smear down on things. And I use a combination of those for the most part now. I used to use, and I still have an interest in it, but there's a paint called gouache that's a little bit like watercolor that I use every once in a while. And so it's a mixture of these. It's all over the place, but for the most part, it's acrylic and colored pencil at this point. And I do it on a thing called illustration board, which I probably have I have sheets of it here. Let me see if I can grab one. So try to find one that actually doesn't have stuff on it already. But illustration board's relatively thick. I don't know if you can see the edge to that, but it's thicker than regular paper. And I just paint right on top and sort of go for it and see what comes out of it. I have some other like sketches of things, and some of these are not instantaneous, I will tell you that much. So I was working on the idea of a planet or just having fun with the idea of an oval just the other day, and I was playing around and eventually got this idea of a universal hula hoop champion with Saturn, of course. And but there are lots of stages in between. I probably have a few more of them over here that are duds that did not work out for whatever reason. And so I saved the boards in case I want to paint back on top of them, but I'm looking to see if I have any other ones that are over here.
We have a comment from Elizabeth who says that she likes doodling. And Ryan and Cordelia ask, if you could do your own illustrations for any existing story, what would you choose?
Any existing story? Well, I would love to do something that's a classic fairy tale or something of the sort, but I'd want to twist it. I'd want to do something new that hasn't been thought of before. I had some ideas for the cobbler and the elves, or the one, I can't think of the title of it right now, but the one where the elves come in and help him make shoes during the middle of the night. But I still have to work out some of the details on that before I actually can work on it. The main thing is I don't worry as much about what the story is. I worry about what I want to get out of it, or what I want the reader to think about in the end. And so it sort of becomes a challenge of what's the concept of the book, or what's the idea I want to get across, and what's the best way to do that. And sometimes it's using a pre-existing story. Sometimes it's making my own thing. And I have lots of ideas that I've tried and just haven't. Some of them work, some of them don't. Some of them are going to take years and years to accomplish. I have one that I was working on. I don't have this sketch here, I don't think anymore. That I was working on. Oh, here it is, right here. There's a little doodle I did during a meeting at my work. And it was a story about a little kid whose grandfather works in a shoe shop. And I really loved the idea. I wrote up an entire story. I sent it off to an editor. They liked it. However, there were some concerns about one little plot point. And now that is a completely different story, different characters. It's been revised so many times. But hopefully this little kernel of an idea will become something bigger, because the idea of it is about upcycling and about sustainability and about, in fact, it's a little bit about sort of caring about the elderly, or knowing that grandparents are not just an older relative, that they have their own story. And so the idea is going to hold up, but it's going to be a totally different thing than what I started out to sketch. This has been sitting up on my my little wall here in front of me to look at every day.
Well, that's interesting, because it seems like a lot of those ideas are only getting better with age, because those are some very current concerns that a lot of people have.
Oh, yes, very much so. It's timely. And so, in fact, that's one of the things that the editor and I are talking about, is sort of, rather than just saying, let's make a fun story, it's thinking about what people need to hear. And, the idea of upcycling is such a good thing, that you don't just throw stuff away, that you can reuse parts and pieces, and things aren't just junk and useless after they've been used once. And so the story is sort of built around that at this point. I'll probably have more info as it comes along, but it still hasn't been picked up. But it's definitely in the process of the editors looking at it and seeing what they think about it at this point.
Okay, well, this has been really great, and I really enjoyed your doodle. I really enjoyed your doodling and your books. We will be editing this file down so that we don't spoil the story.
Uh-oh, we lost audio.
There we go. In the meantime, though, Gibson's Bookstore Events Program is sustained by book sales. So if you would like a copy of Dirt Cheap or Explosion at the Poem Factory, they are available from Gibson's Bookstore. We are offering local curbside pickup. We currently, at the time of this recording, have a 99-cent shipping promotion right now on orders $20 and over. And we are arranging, the mails have delayed the arrival of the books a little bit, but we are arranging to get books signed. So if you, which means that if you would like a personalized signed copy of the book, you can put a personalization request into your order comments, and we can make that happen while we arrange for a safe, socially distanced book signing. So, Mark, it looks like you have a marker at the ready. Do you want to doodle something to take us out?
Yeah. So I drew this this the other day in a illustration I was working on, which was a ginormous let's see if I can get this here. I was playing around. I had an illustration. It's the month of May, and for illustrators that means mermaid. So you draw mermaids, and I had a cat, or a bunch of cats, looking at a mermaid in a bathtub that will go up on my Instagram this coming week. But I designed a couple of cats for it that I really love, just because of their scale. And so it essentially looked like this. It has little tiny legs that stick out. And then pause. But again, you'll see it's the same basic shape, a circle and a tube. And then, oh, And this is the funny part to me. The whiskers are outside of the eyes, even though the mouth is in here. And that's my little kitty cat.
That is a wonderful cat.
Hey!
Cats, my own cat, Sirius Black. So who wanted to be on camera. That is a wonderful cat, and thank you so much for sharing it with us.
No problem.
Guys, I hope you have a great day right now where we are. It's a beautiful day outside. I hope you guys get some time outside today. Maybe don't sell your yard though. So.
Yeah, that is not a how-to list or a to-do. That is a don't dig up your yard. Find other ways, other things you can sell.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.